Go ahead, Ron.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Ron.
Have an interesting issue. It's got a 2003 Camry. It's got the 4-cylinder. She's got 200,000 on her. Generally runs like a charm. However, recently she started to become hard to start. It starts, but it takes longer than normal. Also, and the main thing is the idle is inconsistent. It'll idle at 200. It'll idle at 750 where it should be, 500. Sometimes it won't idle at all. And I personally think the two problems are related. Now, I was told by someone that there's an idle control motor or idle air control motor as part of a throttle bar, and that would be my problem. So I'm looking for somebody that I know has more experience in this myself.
Yeah, Ron, I'm going to tell you, I don't know that these two problems would be related, and let me tell you why. The excessive cranking to get the vehicle started, well, I'm going to tell you like this. There's two things that usually cause a vehicle to have extended cranks. One of them is, and we just recently ran into this with an older Toyota, and what would happen is we would go to crank it, and for the first little bit of cranking, we were getting absolutely no injector pulse whatsoever. But the cam and crank sensor was working correctly, telling the computer that we needed, spark and injector pulse. So that was a rare one. It was definitely a computer causing the issue. We just weren't getting an injector pulse to operate the injectors. The other thing that we run into is if there's a problem with the fuel pump inside the gas tank. And let me explain. You could once you get the vehicle started, you could drive it from here to China and back, and you wouldn't have a problem with it. But what will happen is these fuel pumps in these vehicles have a one-way check valve in them. And what happens is if that one-way check valve starts leaking fuel back out of the fuel system when the vehicle sets, you'll go and you'll turn the key to the on position, which activates the fuel pump for about a 2 to 3 second prime run. And then the fuel pump shuts off, and it won't start back up until the engine starts. So what happens is if you get a one-way check valve in the fuel pump that's leaking residual fuel pressure off and back into the fuel tank, then you turn the key to the on position, that's not enough run time to repressurize and chase all the air out of your fuel system. So when you go to crank it, you've got air in that system, and it takes a little while to chase it out of there. So cycling the key 2 or 3 times usually will do it, and then it'll go ahead and crank and start back up without any problem. But as far as these idle issues go, I think that is you could have a computer problem, but usually if you get an idle control issue like that, it will usually set a code, and that'll usually be a code for, see, the computer will command the idle speed control motor to do one thing, and if it's not adjusting the idle like it's supposed to, it will set a code for that. Ron, do you have a check engine light on?
I have no codes that I can read, meaning there's no hidden codes that I'm not available to me, and no check engine light. The fuel pump issue, I know what you're talking about there. It doesn't matter hot or cold. I can turn it off and turn it right back on, and it still takes, instead of a second or two, it takes about 2.5, 3 seconds.
Well, if that one-way check valve is leaking, it can do it hot or cold. Let's do this, Ron. The next time you go to start it up, turn the key to the on position and off. On position and off. Do that, cycle that key 3 or 4 times before you crank it, and see if it starts up at that point. If it does, I'm going to suggest you have a residual fuel pressure test done on it, and at least that's going to give us a clue of where we should go next.